My lords, today I'm very happy to report on a marvellous find. As you know, we take great interest in the history of our galaxy and have covered several precursor races in great detail. Today, I'm honoured to bring you another, our first new precursor discovery in 5 years. These people were called the Inetian Traders. They were fanatic egalitarians, intent on delivering utopian living standards to all people across their empire. They may have also been a megacorporation, but that part is not entirely clear at this point. These traders delved deep into storm manipulation technologies, and they became quite proficient at it, until they didn't. I shall detail the report on how we discovered them and what we learned for you now. We've identified a ruined world in the Precursors system. The planet has been designated Typhon, and it would appear to be the remnant of an empire lost to antiquity. The subterranean structures that were of interest to us were equally ancient and fortunately relatively intact. Sonar resonance imaging revealed a complex underground structure of storage rooms, as well as shelters designed to withstand the forces of nature. The destruction of the planet's surface was no doubt as a result of cosmic storms, which would align with the existence of the sanctuary. However, the amount of debris is making it hard to investigate any further, and as such, we should set up a full archaeological investigation. Approaching the shelter from ground level revealed a small opening beneath 2 collapsed towers, through which the faint glow of operational machinery could be seen. The opening provided an anchor point for our scientists to map out the size of the complex and possibly find a way to open it up without damaging the delicate structural integrity. The ruins that entomb the site had all the hallmarks of cosmic storm damage, but curiously, there were no signs that the city's inhabitants attempted to protect themselves. It's as if they endured the violence for as long as possible, only to evacuate in a great hurry. Perhaps the answers lie beneath the ruined ground of the planet. After clearing many layers of debris and dust, the opening underway the towers grew large enough for our science teams to enter the shelter. The sanctuary was simple and utilitarian, with many offshoot rooms, most of them empty. In fact, it seems overly simple. This place definitely appears to be a shelter of some kind, but it would not hold up against cosmic storms. The walls are simply too thin, providing very little in the way of support, and the ceilings and floors are not reinforced. This shelter has been saved by nothing less than pure luck. Had it not been for the 2 towers above and the landslide moving the complex in one fell swoop, the Stormshelter would have been eradicated long ago. The glow seen from the outside stems from a few malfunctioning alarm systems, and several operational terminals can be spotted deeper into the Stormshelter. This could be a prime opportunity to learn more about the previous owners of the facility, as well as the curious circumstances at play. The terminals were harder to reach than anticipated, as they were partially obstructed by cave-ins. Some of the rubble was more recent, indicating a critical failure within the shelter that had been disturbed. Unfortunately, the ancient data processors did not give up their secrets easily. Everything was recorded in a lost language, though we hope that the intergalactic communication logs that were left behind, and combining this with the abandoned physical media scattered around the shelter, may be able to help us complete a basic translation. Additionally, we still have several more rooms to investigate, so long as the shelter doesn't collapse. The rooms and chambers that were located further down were not nearly so abandoned as those at the entrance. Boxes of merchandise fill them from top to bottom and are neatly packaged and stacked. Initial translations describe unprocessed materials and unfinished electrical components, neither of which were imperative to survival. The list also details quantities of items at the location and projected profits that they would have generated on something called the Intergalactic Network of Equal Trade, or INET for short. The language surrounding this trading exchange is most ecstatic, with meticulous notes of transactions and itemized indexes of profit. In fact, it would appear that the vanished civilization based their name on this very exchange, calling themselves the Inetian Traders. The shelter was not built to protect the general population, but appeared to be rather a glorified commodity warehouse. This raises several questions, such as why the shelters were so woefully under-equipped to handle the storms. Further translation, we hope, will provide more insight, but we are on borrowed time, as evidenced by the unsettling sound of creaking infrastructure. We have discovered a set of scrambled coordinates which point to the location of a device of great power located on a nearby planet. From what we can understand, this device possesses the ability to manipulate cosmic storms, a claim which would be incredible if true. However, with the waning stability of the shelter and a copy of the coordinates already transmitted to our science vessel in orbit, we shall evacuate the site. Many questions remain unanswered, but we have 3 potential planets to observe and investigate. The hunt is on. One of the 3 coordinate sets found in the ancient Stormshelter has led us to a planet called Eon. Given the extent of the ruins on Eon, it's clear that the planet once boasted many sprawling urban centres. This is likely where the citizens of the Inetian Traders may have lived eons ago. Why the coordinates were securely stored in a Stormshelter will need to be investigated. Sadly, there wasn't a lot left of the cities on Eon. Besides the passage of time, most of the impressive structures that dot the landscape have been ravaged by storms. What architectural features remain are consistent with those that we saw on Typhon, namely a distinct lack of disaster response preparedness despite ample evidence for storm violence on this planet. The thorough destruction will make it difficult to find anything of use, but hopefully not impossible. Our science teams investigating have determined 3 points of interest near the landing site: a relatively intact public service structure, a temple of some kind, and a massive central square. These should provide a good place to continue digging into the Inetian Traders' secrets. Thus, multiple teams fanned out to investigate the 3 most promising locations. While the service structure and public square were interesting as cultural and architectural examples, only the place of reverence was particularly noteworthy. Its crumbling facade conceals a carnivorous hall. Within it, 521 computational terminals are arranged in concentric circles. At the exact centre, which rests an impressive and fully functional model of this solar system. Sensitive nanocomponents within the model appear to be attuned to the planet's electromagnetic fields. Despite the incredible age, the model remains an accurate representation of the system's celestial objects. Furthermore, along its circular base runs an interface visible from every terminal position. This is not a place of religious reverence, but rather an Inetian trading hub and stock exchange. It's therefore logical to conclude that this building once housed extremely important data. It ought to be found, thus we are beginning a search for said data. After a more thorough investigation, it quickly became evident that the trading hub on Eon has been stripped bare. The terminals are inoperable, and besides the image burned into the model's interface, there was no longer any trading information left behind to be found. However, we did find a storage unit tucked away in one corner of the hall that contained what appeared to be user manuals. With rudimentary translation keys developed during our excavation on Typhon, the planet where we discovered the original Stormshelter, a rough interpretation of these manuals has been made possible. It appears that these instructions are for operating the terminals and tuning the system model, as well as calling in assistance from a machine dubbed the Sectoral Disturbance Depressor. This details how to operate, aim, and activate this machine, and it's quite explicit. This must be the device mentioned in the ancient Stormshelter, and may be exactly what we are looking for. It would appear that we are one step closer to understanding the intentions of the Inetian Traders, and perhaps given time we'll be able to harness the power of this machine for ourselves. We still have 2 more coordinates to investigate, and we move on to the next. The second of the 3 coordinates found in the Stormshelter on Typhon have brought us to an industrial planet within the ancient Inetian Trader Empire. Based on the existing architecture, this was clearly not a residential planet. However, it remains uncertain what exactly its industrial might was meant to produce. The planet was called Voltaris, and it was difficult to see the surface of Voltaris through the thick smog still circulating above its factories. Much of the planet's surface has been ravaged by cosmic storm damage, leaving large crevices in the homogeneous industrial landscape. One of these presented a perfect landing opportunity for our ship. There was no sign that any attempt was made to dismantle these production facilities. They were simply left behind, and many still contain production material. Analysing this may allow us to understand what purpose the planet served within the ancient civilization's mercantile infrastructure. It might also tell us more about that celebrated machine referenced on Typhon. Early analysis of the industrial material at use on Voltaris indicated a highly volatile makeup. These products were part of a larger process and not to be used on their own. The substances were eventually transported through a system of conveyors towards a centralized collection depot, and from the surrounding scorch marks, it was clear that this depot was in constant use by the interplanetary transport. The question is, where was the product being delivered to? Given the explosive nature of the cargo, it couldn't have been very far away, and nearby we discovered several shipping crates. Pains were clearly taken to securely package the contents, as the remnants of the warning labels remained printed on the sides. Only one word was still legible, and it stated, "critical." Our science teams went about quickly dismantling the precariously packaged crates. Upon opening the first crate, a strong hiss denoted the presence of a climate-controlled inner chamber, prompting a momentary panic that the contents may destabilize. Fortunately for us, they remained undamaged, and closer inspection revealed a wonderfully crafted and carefully placed machine component, inside of which was a quantity of the volatile material produced by the factory. As such, we will bring the part aboard for further study. Our people should not spend more time on the harsh surface of this world than is necessary. The part that we found and brought back to the ship did look extremely familiar, and the science team retrieved the manual that we found on Eon to compare the two. The intricately manufactured object within the crate appears to be a vital component to the sectoral disturbance depressor. This is a job well done indeed, and we are on to the next and last of the 3 coordinates found on Typhon. The third of the 3 coordinates found in the Stormshelter on Typhon has led us to a barren planet, designated X584b. The surface of this world is little more than snow and dust, but initial scans show that the planet was once habitable. We wonder whether it was important to the Inetian Traders before or after their ruin. Endless blizzards scour the surface of this planet, and as if that wasn't challenging enough, the snow-covered landscape concealed a strange surprise. Layer upon layer of dust awaited us below, and evidence of life forms that once inhabited this world was found within. All were entombed at the same time, suggesting a singular mass extinction event. The collapse of X584b's ecosystem must have subsequently thinned the atmosphere, bringing about an ice age that turned the planet into a wasteland. There must be more to this place than grit and ice sheets, but it was clear that the surface was not going to provide the answers we needed, so we had to dig deeper. Digging into the crust of the planet would hopefully allow us to discover the answers that we sought. Thus, equipped with protective gear and frost-resistant heavy machinery, our science teams made the short work of tedious yet simple process of removing the snow and fine layers of dust. Soon, strange patterns were discovered, a series of trenches spreading in a route-like pattern covering a vast swathe of the territory. Within these crevices we found the dissected remains of all sorts of organisms, everything it could pull from the planet's surface, from vegetation to wildlife and anything that existed in between. Somehow, the trenches ground up the organics by pulverizing them between their rocky walls, extracting any useful nutrients and transporting them to a convergence point in a process akin to digestion. The dust that was spat back out now covers the majority of X584b's landscape. All of this begs the question as to who or what these crevices were feeding. We continue to explore the network of underground tunnels, and it is indeed vast. The further in that our science teams go, the more concentrated the troughs become. They all converged on one of the last remaining mountains on X584b. Cresting the peak is a distinctly unnatural plateau, with 3 large machines placed at equal distances from one another. These machines appear to be Inetian in origin, and they're marked in their language, consistent in design with what we know of their society. Despite their remarkable age and the extreme winds that whip the plateau, these machines remain in excellent condition. I believe we have found what we were looking for, and we stand at the precipice of an incredible discovery. These 3 machines are without a doubt the machines that were mentioned on Typhon, as well as the subject of the manual that we found on Aeon, now known as the Sectoral Disturbance Depressor. All that is left to do is to install the part that we found on Voltaris and hope that the machines are still operational. Only then will we have the opportunity to uncover their purpose and experience what the machines can do. Thus, our researchers got to work. The component from Voltaris slotted neatly into a control console, and the manual from Aeon was employed to install it correctly. Once this was done, all 3 of the machines burst into life. Thunderous vibrations shook the dust and snow from the plateau. With a sharp crack, similar to that of lightning, several of our science team, those closest to the machines, were instantly vaporized. The swirl of dust that was once their bodies quickly sucked into the trenches towards the Sectoral Disturbance Depressor. I believe herein lies the key to what happened on X584b. The trenches leading to the bottom of the machines are fuel lines. They draw in biomatter of their surroundings, and the result is a trail of destruction across the planet. The Sectoral Disturbance Depressors are now fully operational, and it would appear that there is enough fuel left for one single use. All that remains now is the push of a button. Obviously, we pushed the button, and what happened next was quite marvellous. Activating the machine caused a stardust storm of tremendous power to appear in a nearby star system. We, however, were completely protected. A cosmic storm repelling field sprang up throughout our empire to protect us from the stardust storm and all other ravaging space storms. The device only lasted a mere 12 months, but fortunately the stardust storm did no harm to us. It merely ravaged some bordering Blorg planets. Quite amusing, really. With that, however, after uncovering the secrets of the Sectoral Disturbance Suppressor, the trail of the Inetian Traders' fate went quite cold, and it stayed that way for several decades. Several decades passed post this event, but after some time, a thorough reassessment of the data provided us with new insights. Trading records from Aeon demonstrated that these people held strong egalitarian beliefs, and the conclusion is backed by the high standard of living and plentiful luxury facilities that were still left on the planet. With a small degree of variance, every citizen enjoyed an equal share of comfort and opportunity, no matter their profession, social standing, or lineage. On Voltaris, we found indexes detailing the use case of each factory. They were all part of much larger production chains, set up to provide the vast empire with the necessary means to support its opulent lifestyle. Equal distribution of these benefits necessitated a truly staggering amount of material and food consumption, produced at breakneck speeds. Further to this, X584b's repaired Sectoral Disturbance Depressor provided some more insights before we fully decommissioned it. While the exact purpose of the function was still a mystery, after all, was it simply a storm creation device? A traceable data signal was recovered. It would appear that these machines were originally aimed at something, and it was a freely moving entity at that. Thus, our researchers recommend searching nearby sectors for a matching response to the signal. And though difficult, we were able to identify a trace of the prevailing signal. The trail led to an uninhabited planet. Finally, it was time to discover what the Inetian Traders were targeting with their device, and why. After arriving in the system, we quickly identified the planet that we had been searching for. It had no name, simply designated M983. At first glance, nothing about the planet, M983, appeared out of place. It was a planet like hundreds of others, found all over the galaxy. Nor was there any indication of where exactly this signal was coming from. There was no visible transmitter or piece of technology strong enough to have its call registered from systems away. And thus our search continues. We will have to land on the planet and investigate further. After arriving on the surface, we soon discovered that the signal became stronger or weaker depending on our position. Following this simple pattern, we were led at last to a towering mountain range on the far side of the planet. As we approached the looming mountains, the landscape grew ever more blasted, barren and ruined, as if some sort of devastating force had ripped across this part of the world. Based on the damage pattern, we believe this system was at some point ravaged by a cosmic dust storm. However, If that were true, it would be logical to conclude that the whole planet would have been affected. Never before had we seen such a concentrated destruction from a tempest. To learn more, it will be necessary to scale the imposing peaks. The ravaged mountain range consisted of many peaks and valleys, but one oddly shaped crater caught our attention very early on. The walls of this pit were smooth, and in its centre a number of concentric rings were carved into the ground. As we descended into the bowl, we began to feel the pull of a deeply compelling force, inescapable and unmistakably coming from the circle's origin point. Strands of flickering energy rose from the rings, some drifting so far off they eventually escaped the planet's atmosphere altogether. This was the source of the signal. Our science team suggests analysing the crater and its energy fluctuations in order to better understand what happened here. And so that's what we did. Based on the environmental data and detailed simulations, we can safely conclude that it was indeed a celestial dust storm which moved through these peaks. In fact, it formed in this very spot. As for why it did not swallow the entire planet in the process, our best guess is that it was simply too small. Analysis describes a storm that was a fraction of the size of even an average tempest. Based on the fact that the Inetian Traders referred to the sectoral disturbance depressor as a manipulation device, and that this specific storm's energy signal was stored within their databanks, it would seem likely that they were attempting to control the cosmic storm. By calculating the path it took after leaving this place, perhaps we might learn more, and hopefully it will be to our advantage. To track the celestial storm's path turned out to be less straightforward than anticipated. Only a few systems away from its origin point, something drastic happened to its strength, size and course. We suspect it was at this point that the storm was hit with the sectoral disturbance depressor. It knocked the storm off balance and polluted its inner vortex with the pulverized remains of wildlife that had been swept up from planet X584b's surface. As the storm continued to drift across the galaxy, it engulfed multiple systems with devastating repercussions. All of this to alter the course of a minor disturbance away from a particular system. Sensors detect the presence of an abandoned space station in that very system. In order to protect this place, the Inetian Traders left multiple mass extinctions in their wake. The station may not be the capital world we hoped for, but it must be equally important to warrant such measures. We plotted a course, and we are en route to that system now. Nevertheless, the question remains, why on earth were they so desperate to protect this facility? What could it hold? We quickly reached the space station, and it was far larger than originally anticipated. It appeared to be more than just a station, and boasted research instruments as well as sophisticated life support systems and extensive deep space sensors. It was in a dismal state, however. The hull had been compromised with catastrophic decompression, which blew out entire sectors of the space station. It was unclear whether the damage was caused from the outside or from within, but fortunately, orbit control and axis stabilization are still operational, which explained why the structure had not drifted into the star or broken out into an unstoppable spin. Getting inside the station without destabilizing it is likely to be quite difficult. In order to enter the station, it was necessary to pry open an undamaged airlock without causing further implosions. The internals of the station were still pressurized, successfully mimicking a typical planetary atmosphere despite its impressive age. It took days to create the perfect seal between our ship and the station, meticulously equalizing the air pressure. Eventually, though, we were able to open the door safely. Unfortunately, we were immediately met with another obstacle, a blocked corridor clogged with twisted support beams and rubble from nearby depressurization. Sadly, it will take time before we can proceed. After clearing a way forward, we began to explore the station in search of answers. A thorough investigation revealed that the station was built not to observe the cosmos, but rather to protect something, with much of its elaborate scanning equipment directed internally. Personal effects belonging to Inetian Trader citizens were found, as well as logs describing station life. They spoke of an important payload kept in a tightly guarded chamber somewhere on the base. While it did not take long to locate, the room was revealed to be a tomb. Dissected, near mummified remains occupied the space. Each of them were members of the Inetian Trader Empire. Given their mundane positions, it would seem that they did not put up a fight, but simply sat down to die. What in Shroud happened here? The payload, as described by the citizens, was positioned squarely in the centre of the room. It was a singular device, apparently brand new and unused, and it was definitely Inetian in design, but far more advanced than anything that we had seen before from them. Terminals flanking the object display a few paragraphs of the same text, repeated over and over again. We translated it quickly, and it read, "Dearest visitor, if you are reading this, then you are witness to our hubris. In our noble pursuit of equality, we forgot the true equalizer, creation and destruction. Seeking to free our trade routes from the ravages of the cosmic tempests, we tampered with nature. What were once minor disturbances grew beyond our influence. The cosmic storms tore through our worlds. This was not a coincidence, but revenge. We sealed ourselves within this station. It was our last defense, as we were too late. Despite no longer using our depressors, new storms were forming, stronger and more savage. Our final mission was clear. Feverishly, we worked to complete this machine, and it was built for you, visitor. It will save you from the cosmic storms, without further angering them. Our demise is our absolution, but it does not have to be yours." And that's where the text ended. It would appear that within this room, the Inetian traders sealed their fate. Their generosity was as grand as their carelessness. Leaving the station, we returned with their parting gift. A fitting end for a foolish people. However, the artifact that they've left behind is likely to come in quite handy. It creates a colossal storm protection field, reducing the effects of all cosmic storms within the radius. Quite a marvellous find. Well, my lords, that was quite the story indeed. I shall have to figure out where these traders fit into the overall timeline and readdress that. Work to be done. If you want to learn about the war in heaven, then please click the video on screen now.